We finished our hike at Green River Lakes as we had planned, but this last segment from Brooks Lake to Green River Lakes was not exactly as we had planned, and so we just wanted to summarize how how that changed. Basically, we got blasted off the trail by torrential rain, and along with other hikers, ended up spending a couple of days in Du Bois before we could get back on the trail. I mean, it was, we could feel our spirits sink as we watched this heavy rain come in and not move for an evening when we were at Brooks Lake. And we realized we really couldn't crawl into a tent in those conditions. But very fortunately, we got a ride. We asked for, no, we begged for a ride from two fellow campers. And I made the deal sweet by getting hotel rooms for all of us. And we went out to dinner and we dried out. And then the next day, yeah, it was the next day, we ran into Bamarang, who was slack packing for several hikers, CDT hikers. So he was carrying their gear in a van and meeting them mid-trail so that they could cover a lot more ground in a day because they were traveling light. And we carried our own gear, but we asked him if he would give us a lift to reconnect to the trail and get back on schedule, which was particularly important to me because I didn't want to inconvenience my husband who was picking us up on a particular day. So once again, there was just this tremendous lesson of this trail experience is at least as much about the people you meet, and especially the people who were so helpful to us, as well as the gorgeous scenery.
Yeah, so it was even getting blown off was interesting, and we were in the little town of Du Bois, Wyoming, and just meeting other backpackers and then meeting local people. These little towns do appreciate people coming through, or a major part of their business in the summer, but just the accommodation, the helpfulness. Every ride we got took us out of their way to deliver us to where we wanted to go. That was just the pattern. And these were construction workers, farmers, families, whatever, but very helpful that way. So it was both people we met on the trail, but people who we incidentally met. I mean, Du Bois was 900 people. That was the biggest town we stopped in. The others had 105, and others they didn't even count. So small communities, but within each one of them, really a warm welcome, in Wyoming.
Very much
very
so.
refreshing, very positive and uplifting.
So you'll see pictures mostly of the scenery. Mike pointed out at one time that every ridge we walked over in the last few days of the hike especially produced some new view that was magnificent. But we wanted you to know the people side of this experience because that's been very much a part of it. And to cap that off, an amazing thing happened on the last day of our hike. Less than 3 miles from Green River Lakes, which was our place of rejoining where Mike and I had hiked to 2 years ago when we hiked north through the Wind River Range, we ran into 3 people on the trail. As a matter of fact, that day was the busiest day in the whole hike, in the whole 5 weeks or so, the busiest in terms of the number of hikers we ran into. Both northbound and southbound hikers were heavily on the trail on the last day of our hike. And lo and behold, right before we finished and started the steps home, we ran into 3 people. I recognized them and they recognized me. I had trail angeled for them in New Mexico this past April. And we just all shrieked with happiness at seeing each other again. And there were 2 men and a woman, and they're in the pictures in this collection. And Shanti, the woman, said, "Oh, Grace, it's Grace. We talk about you all the time," which I immediately said, "Well, what do you say?" Because I couldn't exactly right away remember. And she said, "You told us to make good decisions. They aren't always the easiest decisions, but make good decisions." I'm really glad I said something that wise because a lot of decisions get made on the trail. And I was so glad to see them again and know that I had been helpful in some way that lasted. And they were doing very well. They had hiked continuously, maybe breaks in time, but had hiked in miles continuously, had not flipped to a different section and gone back, which many, many hikers had done. That they had gotten that far in Wyoming by the first few days of August, they'll make it to the Canadian border. And I'm so pleased and proud of them, and felt joyful in seriously seeing them again, and honestly blessing them on their way and wishing them well in the future of this travel, that this journey, this adventure that they're on. It was a cool moment.
Yeah, it was impressive in many ways, because when we started the trip, we would go for sometimes a couple of days without seeing anybody, okay? And then it'd be one or two people, because we were running into, some people who were southbound like us. And that was fine. That was a certain kind of experience of being very much alone in the wild. And but it was, as we had gone through this thing and progressively meeting more people, we probably met more than a dozen people the last day, easily more than a dozen people.
On the last day.
On the last day. And the thing that's important to keep in mind is because most of those people were northbound, and they were within range of reaching their goal. I mean, still a long ways away. But these are people who this summer are going to complete just shy of 3,000 miles of walking, okay, from Mexico to Canada. And we experienced, the various conditions. So that's impressive in itself. It was a wide range. Most are young. Some were older, but most, I'd say, were probably in the 20s. And equally impressive, easily a third or more were single women doing this on their own, and doing well. No complaints when we met them, just enthusiasm. They look good. I'd say my general impression is the men give away a lot of weight on these trips. They really do. They're, extremely thin by the time they get well into the trip. But the women physically seem to be managing this better. They looked healthy, spry, in good shape. So that was impressive to see the broad spectrum of people doing this, and a wide range of reasons, and the shared enthusiasm. So that was an impressive aspect. The other thing that always, every day, I was at awe with, is that this is America. We're a big country with a lot of people, but America set aside 3 corridors where you can be totally lost in the wilderness for months at a time if you choose to be. That's incredible, okay? I can't think of other countries. Other countries have wildernesses, vast wildernesses. I don't know of anybody that offers the opportunity for their citizens to walk through that, okay? And so the experience America offers is incredible. The people we meet on it, we know this is definitely a character building and even life-changing kind of event for them. And by and large, everybody we met was just enthusiastic, bright, positive, really wonderful to experience. So the whole thing about this was, and physically, I mean, what we experienced physically like that was just awe-inspiring, and that awe was changing sometimes every hour, it's something new and fantastic to see and deal with. So yeah, in every aspect, this was just, you could see for many people a transformative experience, and a very positive and uplifting one.
Even when we ran into some very trying challenges, the blowdowns especially, and we had several on the last day that we didn't know we were going to run into. Glad that final moments of the hike were not the blowdowns, because the blowdowns are really, they're tough on your mind, your spirit about doing this, and physically, of course. But even with that, you knew you were going to come out the other side into something that you were tremendously glad you had done. And I got to say, I'm very, very proud that we met from other countries. The couple that I'll host later this month when they get to my part of Colorado is from Germany. And we met a person from that same group from Israel. So that when we encountered another person from Israel going northbound, and we had just preceded the group going southbound, we knew these two people from Israel would encounter each other. We made sure the guy going north knew, because he was hiking alone. He'd hiked,
2,000 miles.
Almost 2,000 miles by himself. And we heard later that they did indeed not only encounter each other, but sat down and talked a few feet off the trail for an hour and a half. So, I mean, these encounters between people of different countries on the CDT are just a powerful part of the experience, and you can't predict what they're going to be like. You can't predict who you will run into, what you will learn, what you will laugh about, what you will grimace about together, whatever it might be. You can't predict that, and you throw yourself into this experience with the excitement of knowing something new that I've never experienced. Several somethings new are going to come my way, and that in itself is a terrific feeling.
Yeah. It was I like that positive in every way, with people on the trail, and again with the people off the trail.
Absolutely.
They were were universally enthusiastic, interested, and helpful.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And these are people that let's say most of us don't really interact with very much. I mean, these are the farmers and the ranchers and the cowboys and the rangers.
The construction guy that I normally never would have run into.
Right, but they become the family we interact with, and it's all about what we share in common.
Yes.
And this trekking experience, they're all in the area where they see backpackers every day, kind of thing, and so they all become part of the experience.
And I can tell they genuinely enjoyed the time they shared with us as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's been a very uplifting experience. So much so that we're not done. We finished the hike that we set out to hike, and in a few days, the two of us are going to hike about 85 miles in the San Juans, the gorgeous San Juan Mountains of southern Colorado, also part of the CDT. And for me, it will knit together the final piece between Mexico and the middle of Montana. This was a piece left undone so far, that it's about 75 miles of the CDT, and then we get off, we go down to the Animas River. It reconnects me to the Colorado Trail that I finished several years ago now. So I am tremendously excited to complete that piece, to share it with my oldest brother. And we're gonna finish this in style, because we come down to the Animas River and we catch the Durango-Silverton narrow gauge steam locomotive into Durango, and then I'm done. I'm done with the major hikes for this year, and Mike will head back to Alaska. But that is a future video, and we hope you enjoy this one for the closeout of our hike from Storm Lake, Montana to Green River Lakes, Wyoming.
And it's been a fantastic adventure.
Gunsight Pass, elevation about 10,200. This is our last full day of hiking, and we're headed down to Green River Lakes, which you can barely see in the distance, right down there in that valley. Descending to the Green River. We had some blowdowns to deal with on the way here, and that was so exhausting and not fun. And then you get this, which is just gorgeous. It's a big moment to get back here to Green River Lakes, northern end of the Wind River Range, with my brother. We're less than 2 miles from the junction we would have crossed 2 summers ago. And it's as beautiful as ever. And I'm really glad I shared this with my brother, who is way in the distance down there.